So I didn't learn I learned the most shallow form of Black history through school. I learned
Yeah.
that Black people exist and they came here and they were slaves and then they weren't slaves and then they got some rights. Martin Luther King.
So we are gone. And welcome to episode 4?
Who knows? Who cares?
Episode 4.
Some episode.
Welcome to episode 4 of Mixed Edition. Whoop, 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 whoop. I'm Sebastian.
I'm Dani.
Sashel.
And we are here to talk to you today about Black history. In this, the last week of Black History Month. Yay!
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 Woo!
But we wanted to do an episode about this because we weren't planning on launching in February. It kind of, things happened. We're going to launch January. But instead, one of us almost died. So then we launched in February instead. So we realized that our schedule that we had first wasn't really going to work because we did want to do a Black History Month episode, but we would have to move another episode to get to this episode. So we did. I know it's the last week. Love us anyway. But we did.
Sorry.
But we actually did want to talk about this with you guys because we really believe that it's super important. We also really believe that our perspectives on this might be unique. Just having the mixed perspective, being multiracial kind of lends to an interesting experience. So if you've been with us before, you know what you're in for. If you're first time here,
Hey,
welcome.
Welcome. Come sit with me.
Welcome. But
we're here to learn.
thanks to some feedback from some of you who have been watching, thank you. You know who you are. We love you.
Hey.
We've decided to kind of go a little bit, not a lot, a little bit more structured with how we're going to do things. So we're just going to talk a little bit more about the main topic of the actual episode instead of, going off on wild tangents.
What?
Wait, no, that's still gonna happen.
It's still going to, but it'll happen less. And say, you know what? If you know who you are, tell us if it worked or not. We'll see what happens. But like I said, today we're talking about Black History Month. And from the mixed perspective, we're kind of talking about how it kind of came into our scope when we actually started learning about it and when we discovered we were Black coming up. But we want to first start and talk about why it's important. So why it's important, literally the thing about Black History Month every year is it always shows up and you always are reminded that, Black History Month, you see it on TV, it's on Netflix, it's on Hulu. They do featured stuff.
Yep.
And it always kind of begs the same question of this is the month, okay, we learn about Black history. And I always end up learning something different. I always end up learning something that I never, ever knew about people in Black history, and especially Black African American history. Things that come up still surprise me to this day. People, inventors. There was actually on Hulu, there's a really cool thing, go watch it, where they talk about people who invented stuff that you would never have known it was a Black person. You would literally never have known that until someone told you. And I wanted to talk about how in my own personal education experience, and I know my co-hosts have had similar education experiences where it seems like we spend a whole lot of time on history that is anything but Black history.
A whole lot of time.
It seems like we spend a whole lot of time on anything but, and I'm going to come clean. My Black history knowledge is lacking. Seriously lacking. When you compare
Mine
it to world history or even, I hate to say white history because it's very palatine and it's very different. But that's what you learn. That's what you learn about. Most of the history you learn about is white history. And I think that it's kind of important to like at least talk about, at least
Yeah.
like what is your guys' experience like learning about Black history from school and then kind of as adults learning about it as yourselves?
Yeah, for me, oh, Black history. So I didn't learn, like, I learned the most shallow form of Black history through school.
Yeah.
I learned
Yeah.
that Black people exist and they came here and they were slaves and then they weren't slaves and then they got some rights. Martin Luther King. The end.
Yeah, the only
Yeah.
addendum I would make to that is like Abraham Lincoln. like,
Oh yeah,
right,
Emancipation
right.
Proclamation.
Like you learn the white perspective of Black history. Like
Yeah.
that's school.
Yeah, it was very, very shallow. Just the whole thing. And that's really all I kind of spent. Like that's all the time. And not that it wasn't interesting, because like obviously I can like relate to these people and it's
Right,
interesting to know your own history,
right,
but at the same time it felt so removed. It was almost like they were telling us about fish in the sea. Like when we learned in biology, they're like, "Oh yes, and look at these animals. This is
right.
how they've evolved over
I feel
time."
that.
You know, and
I
then,
feel
like that's
that.
how it felt.
Right.
That's how it felt for
Did
me.
you relate to learning about like classic American history or white history? Or did you also feel like you were learning about something that didn't like relate to you?
Ooh, so what? So when I learned, I also felt that way in some cases about white history, but there were things like learning about the Holocaust,
Right,
where you spend an entire month
right,
learning about the Holocaust,
right,
and like they like get into it and they're like, "Oh, this is why it was so wrong," and like you're getting into the feels of it, where Black history didn't really do that for me in school,
right.
I'll
Same.
say.
I would say like even during Black History Month, it wasn't recognized in my schools. And you would have a couple of the cool teachers who would like I watched Glory in 8th grade. That was a thing. That was a thing.
Yeah, can I just say I didn't know about Black History Month until the end of middle school. Just didn't
Same.
know it existed.
Like literally, it just was never brought up. And to clarify for the people watching who might be like, this is completely different from the experience that I had. We grew up in the 90s. Like when we went to elementary school, it was in the 90s and like early 2000s. And it was just different. It was a very different kind of climate. I feel like today it's maybe a little bit more pertinent, especially because like I said, it's on Hulu, it's on Netflix, it's on Instagram, it's on like all your social media is telling you it's Black History Month. And so like I think that that has made it more prevalent. That's why we're doing a podcast about it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, we grew up before social media.
we
Right.
yeah. So for us, school kind of just was and I share a lot of the same experience with Sashel, but to answer Danny's question a little bit more in depth on my end, like I felt exactly the same way about white culture. Like in all honesty, when you're learning about, America's birth and the discovery of it and all of that, and you're learning about all these European uh discoverers and whatnot and the horrible things that they did, you start to like again, I didn't learn that in school. We'll talk about that later. But you start to like get this sense of like they're over there and I'm over here. Like modern Americans are so different, obviously, than, the Italians or Spanish people who discovered, or Vikings who discovered America. So like I had that sense of like, it's not me. But I felt that also about Black culture just because I was raised by mostly my Italian family. Like my dad left the picture when I was like 7, and he was my biggest connection to the black side of my family. So I just, again, that was the perspective I had. I didn't, obviously, my 2 Italian parents, because I got a stepdad that was Italian, didn't come up to me and go, "It's Black History Month. We should learn something about your culture." They had no idea. Like, they had no idea. They had no idea. When I brought up Juneteenth to them, they were confused. They were genuinely confused. They were like, "What?" But it is my culture. You know what I mean? And we talk a lot on this channel about kind of breaking down the barrier of just claiming a culture and it being the only thing you can be. But, you know, it was weird because I really started to see myself as black the more I learned about the history and about the struggle and about the just the deep rooted, you know, and people start to say like, "Oh, it makes you paranoid," because you start to think like, "Oh, is this part of that system? Is that this part of that thing that I've been learning about?" But also because we were born outside of it in a sense, because we were kept kind of away from it in a sense, we didn't know that. I had no idea race was an issue. Like, I had no idea race was an issue. Like, the most issue I dealt with race is like at school, I was light skinned. So like I got a little bit of heat for that. But other than that, I just thought that was like them being like, "There's something about you I don't like." And I'm, you know what I mean? Rather than like, "Oh, it's a racial issue." And then learning about it in
Yeah.
school is just like culture shock a little bit.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think more on the issue of um race, like discovering race.
Mm,
I didn't know that that race was a thing. I mean, well into elementary school.
yep.
Like almost middle school.
Yep.
Um, but it was late elementary school, and it wasn't like, I mean, yes, I also got some slack for, being light skinned,
Mm,
but it wasn't, "Oh, you're different." It was just like, "Oh, you're lighter and, we don't like that."
right.
Instead of, it wasn't like, "Oh, you are white,"
Right.
or, you know,
I thought it was
or
like an
something like
ugliness
that.
thing. I thought they were
Yeah,
like,
I didn't
"Ew,
I
you're
just
light
thought it was
skinned."
a trait.
Right.
Yeah, I was just like, "It's a trait." Like, "Oh, I don't like your
Wild.
freckles." Like,
Right. Well,
And
deep.
at least from
something
what
like
I've
that.
heard, though, that's like very common to experience at a young age because, you're trying to relate to people. And you guys both went to schools where there was like a lot of white kids there. So, and kids are blunt. So they're going to be like,
That's kind.
"I only know these few things and I have eyes to I've just learned colors and I'm this color and you're this color." So it's very like, whoa. I didn't like have too much of an awareness because I grew up in an environment that was very closed, right? So
Right.
like in our elementary school, like you would stay in your classroom and that's it. So like any of the kids in your classroom are your friends. And if you went to a different class next year, like they're not your friends anymore. Like where you are is the only things that apply to you. And that was pretty much the case all the way up until high school, right?
Right.
So then I started going to high school with 1,500 kids, and it was still in a place that is fairly segregated just from the fact of like now that we all have teens flying around, these ignorant brains of ours, like now that we all have hormones, like we're going to start trying to hang out with people that are cool or hang out with people that are lame. Like now we're
Right.
starting to try and figure out social structure. So now there's clumps of people.
So are you saying you
that's-
didn't know like black people were a thing until
That's
high
when
school?
I started to realize.
Until high
because
school, bro?
Up until that point, I didn't even realize that people were living their lives differently than I was, which is my bubble. I'm
Right.
going from place to place in my environment. Then I go out into this big ass environment saying like,
Ah,
"Look at that vibe over there that I know nothing about."
Wow.
Like if I got out of class, I'm just gonna, be quiet and sit there. And I like find a full-blown party happening in the hallway on my way to geography class. I'm like, "What's going on?
Hey!
What is going on
You're
over
like, "Wait,
there?"
was this an option the whole time?"
Yeah. Can you imagine Dani at a barbecue though? like for real?
Oh,
She's just showing
very.
up like, Oh my God.
I can wait.
Yeah,
Everybody gets a plate. Wait, we're taking plates home. The idea of taking plates
but I
home. What is that?
Yes.
yeah, but that's an interesting point because I would have never guessed that your first like realization of outside culture was high school.
High school.
That seems very old for me in my
Same.
brain, but that's because maybe I had societal pressures from the outside
Right.
that were constantly telling
Right.
me that like I needed to, be in this bubble of people. But yeah, that's super, super interesting. I
That's
thought that
crazy.
late elementary school was late,
Yeah,
but
same.
you
Like,
are much later.
I think though, me and Sashel take it for granted just a tiny bit because obviously you with the person you are, it's hard to always keep like, oh, I'm mixed. Like I am two races. Like my families were drastically different from each other when I was younger. Like drastically. Like I got that culture knowledge, but I didn't know it was a black thing. I didn't know it was like a culture thing. I thought it was just like people being different. Like my mom and my Italian family were one thing, and then my dad and my nana and like my black family, they're something else. Like it just always seemed like different people, different strokes for different folks. And then
Yeah.
early elementary school, middle school was when it really became. And honestly, I don't know about you, Sasho, but the first people to tell me I was black were white people. Like not even like I said, in the black community, I was light skinned. Like they still, I wasn't not black, but I also like didn't really realize that was a thing. So I was just like, all right, I'm part of this. But then I moved to a whiter school, and a bunch of people were like, you talk different, you look different, like you're not the same as everyone else, like you're black. I was like, wait, what? Like what?
Yeah, that's interesting. So, for me, middle school was a weird period, as it is for everyone,
Hmm.
I'm sure. It's
Hmm.
just awkward. Luckily, my middle school experience, I grew a lot during middle school, but I only spent a few years with those people because I went from living
Right.
in Syracuse and I moved to Buffalo, and then I moved school districts um, in 6th grade. So I spent 3 years, a third through 6th grade with these people, and that was my first experience of them being like, "Whoa." You're like having a similar experience like that,
Right.
like, "Whoa, you're different."
You're different.
Not that I talked very differently because I didn't.
I did.
Um, yeah, well, I mean, we talked about that
Yeah, we
before.
did.
Probably just that
This is
those
just the way I
kids
speak.
were used to a cookie cutter experience that I have. So when they experienced even a smidge of difference, they were like, whoa, where you're like, nah, dude, that's just me. Like, I'm not that different.
Right.
Right. Yeah, so I learned that different differences, some were attributed to just being different and some were attributed to kind of a cultural thing. And yeah, that was my realization. Luckily, that awkward phase was promptly stopped and I moved on to a new set of people that I could apply my newfound knowledge to,
Right.
and everything worked out just
Right.
fine.
You
Yeah,
had such a better experience than like you. It seemed like you kind of got used to one thing, and then you had like a couple of years of dissonance where it was like, that doesn't really work. That doesn't really work. But then by the time you got to high school, you had enough of like knowledge of like what people expected or like even what you wanted yourself to be that you kind of just like eased into it. Whereas I literally got thrown to the sharks, man. Like literally coming out of sounded like this. Going into I had an accent, like hard,
Yeah, you were
right?
like, "Yo, what up?"
Going in, coming out, I sounded like this. And then I went to
Mm.
Sweet Home, which for those of you not in the know, it has a large black population in the school. It's I would say at least if not half, then like predominantly black. And it was it all over again of what do you why do you like what are you doing like why do you talk like that, man? Why do you like what's going on? And just that weird dissonance again where I'm just like, damn, man, I just like like that. They told me I was black. I was too black to be white, and now I'm too white to be black. Like, what the hell happened? What am I supposed to do? Tell me. I was an impressionable teen.
Yeah, I got to spend my middle school years getting comfortable with myself in outside of the context of other people's opinions,
Right.
which was nice.
Yeah.
And you didn't get to do that.
I wasn't
I
strong
mean, you
enough.
did. It took
Right.
it took a while.
You are a much more independent kind of person. Like, you were like, screw this. I'm gonna be myself. Like, way before, like, I think a lot of people even do that. Whereas I was like, I just want to have friends, man. I just want to make friends. And at School 81, like, to make friends, you know, you walk up like, what's good? Like, you know, like that's how you made friends. And then going to Hoover, I was applying the same tactics and getting
That's
mixed
fair.
results. That's when I found out I was black. Like, I was considered black. Like, that's when I found out, like, you black, bro. Like, you different. And then I was like, oh shit, okay, well, what do I have to do to make you more comfortable? What do I have to do to make you, you know, to have friends? And then they were like, oh, well, ease up on the slang, you know, don't be so, you know, overtly black. And I'm like, what does that even mean, man? I was like, what does that even mean? You know, and then you go to high school with this new mindset of like, well, at least I figured out exactly how people want me to be and to be comfortable. And I walk in, I'm
Then
like,
you have
hi,
a
what's
whole
going
new
on,
set of
man? And
people.
he's like, nigga, why you talk like that? I was just like, like, no, I did it. I no. Right. And then I obviously, for the people who don't know me, I stopped giving completely stopped giving a fuck. I speak however damn well I please.
I'm
But-
sorry, but that literally it's like, hey, that reminds me of, like, you know, when you're playing Final Fantasy and you beat a boss and then there's another boss behind you. And you're like,
He comes back to
Damn
life
it!
even stronger. You're like, what? I just did this. Oh, dude, it really feel like that though. Like, it feels like no matter what I did, I was different. Like, no matter what I did, people were uncomfortable.
Did that make you want to learn more about, like, in the context of Black history? Did it make you want to start doing your own thing?
In high school, I identified more black than I had in my life previously, just because I played football. So it was who I was around a lot. You know, like, it was just like the people I was running with. And then when I met Sashel's brother, Vo, because I'm sure he doesn't care if we say his name on our podcast.
No, this is like the
I think
fourth
we already
time.
have.
So Sashel's brother and me met in high school, and he's also mixed. He was actually one of the only mixed kids that I ever met. I mean, there were a couple in my high school, but again, I hadn't really, like, expanded outward yet.
Right.
But Sashel and Vo were some of the first two mixed kids that I met, and who were having the same, like, kind of issue and had already solved it. You know what I mean? Like, they were already like, yeah, dude, just be whatever you want to be. It does,
Just
like,
do what you want.
it doesn't matter. And then, like, from a culture aspect, it did make me want to learn more about what it means to be black, because my parents just don't know. They have no, my mom, don't get it wrong, my mom was hood. My mom got slack for being with a black man. Like, she knows that side of it, but she doesn't know what it's like to have that culture, to have that part of you, like that ancestry, that,
Right.
you know, and to learn about it late is to be like, all these years, from the time when I was a kid, when an old lady asked me if I was black and white mixed together, and I was like, yep. And she was like, gross. She was like, ew. And I was just like, wait, what? Like, what is wrong with that? My response, literally, famously, my mom loves to tell people this. My response was literally, I'm America's favorite cookie. Like, that's literally, I was like, what? What's wrong with this? From my frame of reference, it was like, bro, what's wrong with being black and white together? Oreos are delicious.
Literally.
Like, what's wrong with that?
Horrible old lady.
She's in the past. I don't know. She's not even
No,
around.
She only
I
exists
see where you're
'cause we
coming
mentioned
from.
her.
Yeah, I literally never had an experience like that. So I've never had someone look down on me because, you know,
Because you're
I am
mixed.
black and white.
Right.
But I will say mine has more just been like settling into what a mix of black and white means
Right.
to me, you know. And the thing is like especially in learning about history, I know so much more ab- about, you know, white history, and then the black history that you learn, there's no real accomplishments there. You
I
know what I
mean,
mean? Like
yeah.
when you learn about black
The
history, what
survival
you
is
learn
the
about is
accomplishment.
that they were slaves. All right? And then a white person came in and saved them from slavery. And
Yep.
then they didn't have rights. And then the white government was like, "We got you, bro." I know like they did their sit-ins, but it's still always like handed out
Right.
by white
Abraham
people. So
Lincoln,
it's
John F.
yeah,
Kennedy,
it's
Kennedy.
right. It was never something that they did on their own. So there was never any like real accomplishment. So I think it's interesting that you were talking about earlier how there are inventors and things that you learn all the time that are new. And that would have been really nice to know
right.
earlier.
Right.
Because to be honest, like all the white history we're learning is literally like white people taking over the world.
Yeah.
And
And
they are
lying about it, making it sound like they're
and
doing a good
literally
thing.
yes, and making it sound good. Like, okay, Christopher Columbus, like, I'm all for America,
Right.
right? I'm all for it. But yo, I'm Native American too,
Right.
and I know what happened. Like that was a slaughter across Manifest Destiny, a slaughter across our entire country
Yeah.
of all the people that were already there and are forgotten now,
Yep.
right?
Well,
So
yes.
I mean,
Generalizing. That's that. Just for the people listening. It's
yes,
generalizing. But yes.
but in history, it's generalized.
Right. What we
It's
learn
just
in
kinda like
school specifically is
yes,
very
our
generalized.
textbooks say, yes, they thought of Manifest Destiny, and then they trailblazed their way to the West Coast.
Mm,
What do you think that means? And they don't tell you in school. They don't tell you that it was a war.
nope.
It was a like, it was a mass
Honestly,
slaughter.
They
though,
do it through
But
like facts.
right. Well, shout out, honestly, shout out to the teachers out there who definitely attempt to make it a little easier. Like I had a teacher, Mr. Martin,
To see the
no
truth.
relation, who he actually suggested we read this book. Uh, the name of it is escaping me right now, but it was like the true history of the United States or something like that.
uh,
He was like, because I was always a history buff. Like I was really big into history when I was a kid. I loved everything world history, not necessarily American history, mostly world history. But my lack of American history stemmed from the knowledge that I had obtained of being black and like understanding like this is history, but is it my history? Like like the civil rights was like a freaking 2 week segment in a 4 year program, you know?
right.
And I just didn't have interest in it the same way that I had interest in like world history. Like, you know, thousands of years ago, I was super interested to that. And my teacher, Mr. Martin, was like, why aren't you? Because he was my American history teacher, so he was like, why are you sleeping through my class? I'm like, dude, I know all this stuff. Like, you've been teaching me this since before I could know how to read. Like, you've been teaching me all this stuff my whole life. Like, yes, I understand that it's important, but it's not necessarily interesting the same way it would be is if I was getting the unedited version. If I was getting the truth of the history, like you get from like the fall of Roman Empire. You think those emperors wanted to be known as the way they're known now? Like you think they wanted to be known as like drunks and people with syphilis going crazy and killing, you know what I mean? They don't want to be known that way. But
Mm-mm.
it's been so long that history has kind of come down to whatever the last person who got to tell it said. And my interest in history was a lot more in the reality of things than it was in this like glorified American history that you get in high school. And
Right, there's more bias.
he was like, you
There's
should read
more
this book because it talks about America realistically, which I think it's important for everyone to see the country you live in realistically. And honestly, like in reading that book and in seeing a lot of the things that the government has done to black people, the society has done to black people, it starts to connect with me. It starts to really make sense. My life, the struggles, the things that I had to go through, it started to make sense in a way that, if one of my parents had been black, I think I would have known. I think they would have told me. But because I didn't have that, it took years and years and years of like my own vindication of like seeking out the culture and finding it for myself and learning it for myself. And even now I'm ignorant. I'm ignorant as hell. Like I
I don't know a
honestly,
lot.
I want to know more. I genuinely do. But again,
What started to make sense for you that didn't make sense before?
what was going on? Like why I was different. Why I was like, when you don't understand that level of self-awareness, where somebody's looking at themselves and going, I am this person. I might be a little quirky, I'm a little weird, I'm a little awkward in social situations. And you're like, okay, well, people don't talk to me because I'm awkward. People don't sit next to me because I'm fat. People don't, like all these things that are set from living life. And then to have this whole new layer, this whole new perspective that, again, I would rather have not. I wish that it didn't exist. I wish that I didn't have to like recognize it. But dude, you're stupid not to. It gets to a
Yeah.
point in a black or a mixed man's life where it's just stupid not to know your history and to know how this country
You're
is
saying
known
that
to treat
you
you.
are being continued to be treated negatively and not know why?
Bruh.
Because no one would say it?
You have seen me try and
yeah.
get like food stamps when we were struggling. You saw me try and do that. How much more difficult was it for me than it was for you?
So much more difficult. Because people would be calling up on your house. Right?
Literally.
Checking up on you, making sure.
Literally.
Like every couple of weeks.
Dani had it for
Having you
months.
fill out forms, having you go in person.
Dani had it for months. Had food stamps for months. Not one checkup call. Not one person knocking on the door being like, hi, we're just, making sure that everything is, good. They like never once. Never once. Like,
Did teachers, and I'm sure teachers had their biases, so they would treat you differently as a student.
I mean,
did that happen where they were just like had made assumptions?
I mean,
Maybe.
there are racist people
maybe.
everywhere.
But like I said,
But
like
the thing, yeah,
I didn't know. I didn't know.
I want to say there were times where I was treated differently without knowing why, and it didn't click that someone was just subtly racist
Right.
until I was well into my teens.
Right. Till you're older.
Like I didn't the concept of racism did not occur to me. Like even though I knew there was a concept of different races, like in elementary school, the idea that someone would hate someone based on
the color of the skin was
like
ridiculous.
like your outside skin suit
oh my
did
God.
not make any sense to
Dude,
me.
I think that
it just never occurred to me.
it's the nature of being mixed that kind of leads to that, because like the people you look up to and call mom, and then even because of our stepdads for a while, like even the people you call dad, because they look different, they look completely different, they have different hair, they have different skin tone, but that's still my mother. I still love her. That's still my dad. I love him.
So you
like
understand the concept of loving someone
despite them being different. It didn't even make sense.
You understood that.
Yeah, there was no such thing as judging someone by their outside aesthetic in like that made sense to me.
Yep.
And it still doesn't to this day.
Nope.
Like you see
It's stupid.
all of like you've seen the people I hang out with. I obviously don't judge people by what they look like or like how they dress.
Right.
I'm over here like, are you a good person? Do we get along?
Right.
Okay,
do we vibe?
then.
That's it. That's
yeah.
all. Like,
do we vibe? And that's all that's ever mattered to me. So it like the concept of someone hating me for just my outward look was foreign.
Foreign as hell.
And when I realized that that was going on and there was nothing I could do about it, it was super depressing.
Yeah. It's hard to. Okay, so I used to, when I was a kid, be obsessed with like everything Japanese. The phase, right? I'm talking samurai. I'm talking history. I had books on books on books, right? And I always was jealous just because always wanted to be able to read this and be like, yo, this is my history. Like this is and obviously Japan, has some
It's an
history that's
amazing
not great
thing.
either, but I mean, like, they just know. They know their history
They
going
know
back
thousands of years
thousands
back.
of years. My history is buried. Like I have Italian family and I know my Italian history, but we're Calabrese, we're the tip of the boot, but I don't know anything about being black or my African or African American history other than
Certainly not hundreds of years back like that.
oppression, other than fighting oppression, other than, getting to be able to vote.
And you still don't
Getting
know
to
the
be able to
details
live.
of that. You only know like the main figureheads.
Right,
You
but
don't know your own specific story.
But what I'm saying is, like, when you start to realize that it is affecting your life, and like Sashel said, you can't do anything about it other than, try and raise awareness and all. Obviously, like, we didn't do that because we were teenagers and we didn't have the passion that some of the people out there today have. But we were just generally, and I'm speaking for both of us, forgive me, we were just generally like confused. I was genuinely like, how could you hate someone because of that? Like, you don't even know that person. How could you hate someone because of that? That makes no sense. That makes literally no sense.
I'll actually say, uh, and I'll step out in front of this. My reaction to that realization was to blend in to my white surroundings as much as I possibly could.
Facts.
So I was
Facts.
straightening my hair
Mm.
and hiding all my body curves.
Yeah.
And yeah, generally, I mean, I was still doing things. I didn't change as a person, but I definitely tailored my outside aesthetic. Like, was I
Right.
wearing polo shirts? Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Like, I was all about Abercrombie and Fitch and Aeropostale
Right.
and
And me and your brother on the flip
yeah.
side wearing South Pole, and your brother with the giant earring, and like I was wearing the Nikes. Like I was trying to blend into my environment too. And at that time it was a black environment. And it really made me realize, and like the whole reason we've even done this podcast, it made me realize it doesn't matter. Like, I'm just gonna be me. Like, I'm just gonna do the things I want to do. I'm gonna talk the way I want to talk. I'm gonna say the things I want to say. And you know what? If you can't hang, there are 8 billion people on this planet. I'm sure I could
Literally.
find someone else who is alien like me.
Yes. I think
Yes.
growing up makes you think that your little bubble that you're around, the people that you're around are the people you need to learn how to get along with.
Right.
But then you get into the real world and there's so many more people. So if you don't get along with the people that you're directly next to, that's okay.
Yeah. But we didn't know that when we were kids, man. That was our
Right.
world. That was our
Dude,
existence.
who you telling? I was trying to fit
Everyone
in as
remembers
well.
high school. Yeah.
I was all about Abercrombie and Fitch and Aeropostale.
Oh,
My mom
God.
was like, "I'm not." I mean,
Oh,
she
God.
didn't. They would hook us up, but still,
They did.
it's
Oh,
not
God.
my personal choice. Like if I look back now, is that my dream aesthetic?
Right.
No.
No.
It's not.
Am I now too lazy to straighten my hair every day? Yes, I wear this
am.
curly.
Right.
Yes, I am.
You wear your
too
hair-
lazy.
You wear hair natural now, which is something that we talked about a long time ago, because me and Sasha have known each other forever. If you're new here, then now you know that. Blah, 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 blah. But I actually tried to relax my hair at one point just because because I have mixed hair. And we'll do a whole nother episode on this. Mixed hair is weird, man. It can have two different
it's weird.
textures. It can have like two different, it's weird. So
Have all the different textures.
I wanted to relax the top of my hair because it was straighter than the side of my hair. And I was like, okay, if it's going to be straighter, I'll just shave the sides of my head and then have my hair be straighter on top. Just for looks. I just wanted it to look better. And, bro, that was a terrible idea. Relaxing your hair is it hurt. And I mean, honestly, I took it like a champ, but it also, like, I'm like, how many times a week? Like, what? You do this every week or like what? Like, and they were just
Couple months.
every couple months, and I was just like, hell no, bro. Like, I'm not maintaining this. Absolutely not. But like, I was like, why do I want my hair to look different? Why do I want my hair to be more like the people around me? And it, again, wasn't racially motivated. It was just what I had, the hair that I have. And I was just trying to make it work for me. It was not racially motivated in any way, shape, or form. And I feel like Sashel has kind of also grown into that because she wears her hair a lot more natural now. Like, it's just always, she's like, I'll do it whatever I feel like doing. And to me, that's like, yes, everyone should just do whatever the hell they want to do. If you want to get box braids, get box braids. If you want to get cornrows, because you know what? Like, trying to be a culture or a race is just, in my opinion, it's overplayed. Like, let's just be people.
Right.
Just do
Let's
things
be
we like to
people.
do.
Just do the things you like to do.
Yeah.
I think that's legitimately awesome, and it comes from your experience, because even if you got a lot of white history growing up in school and you got a smidge of black history growing up through school, we got zero mixed history growing up through school.
Yeah.
So you're
Mixed
There's no
history
such
is
thing
the
technically.
newest.
Right.
Right.
You're living it. You're currently making it as we speak. And for
It's
us
kind of
to
true.
and, for,
I didn't even think about it like that. Oh, shit.
and what you're choosing to make is something that's accepting of many things.
Yes.
That is inclusive of many things.
Yes. All cultures,
that-
one culture.
Yeah, I think that honestly, like, the mixed thing kind of lends itself to that. Like, we can be all encompassing. Like, it doesn't matter where you come from, just come with love, you know? And I think that that's such an important kind of message.
Yes.
Like, honestly, mixed people have been around for a very long time,
Yes.
but uh this is the first time in history that there has been a segregation between being mixed and being black.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Because there was
a
always the
great way to
one
put
drop rule.
Right.
That's a thing historically. Like, you have a little bit of black in you, you're black.
You're black.
And that's how society kind of saw it for a long time.
In America.
And
In America, yeah. Well,
and in Europe.
in history. In history,
In
period.
history.
Yeah.
They used
Yeah.
to, at least from what I've known. So Trevor Noah grew up in South Africa, and his father was white and his mother was black.
Ooh, that was super illegal until
He was
very
basically
recently.
a crime. So like people would ask his mother, like, who helped you commit this crime?
Yeah, South Africa, we can do an entire
Yes.
show on
Yes.
South Africa because
Yes.
apartheid is crazy.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
the
that is
act
the whole
of
thing.
like,
But
yeah,
can
that's
we
a whole
Can
different
we
level.
call it necessarily black history? It did happen to black people as a race, but when we talk about black history, we're mostly talking about, and I think this is a universal thing, we're mostly talking about American black history because it was
I agree.
created from the exclusion of black people from any other. Like it doesn't matter if you were Ugandan or
Right.
Zimbabwean or Nigerian. It didn't matter. You were black.
That's true.
You
That's
know,
very true.
So it's like one of those cultures, probably one of the only cultures, minus maybe like when you say like Asians, right? It's like you have these cultures of, all right, you know what? You can even say like Latinos, like every culture.
Yeah.
Every culture has this, but it's the only one that is like an all-encompassing culture. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, when you're white, right? If you're Italian and you're
I'm so
Jewish,
confused.
it's different, right? If you're Italian and Jewish, it's different. You have different history. You have different. But when you're black in America, like, you're black.
You're black. Yeah, you don't have, unless you specifically like
know where you came from.
immigrated.
Right.
You came. Yeah, you came here not on a slave boat.
Right.
Yeah, you probably don't know where you're from in Africa. Like, I have no idea.
We're going to try and find out. We have 2/3 of our Ancestry.com stuff, so stay tuned. Hopefully we'll get that done. Maybe season 2.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
Super excited to find out.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of negative things about not having that past history of not knowing where you come from. But the beautiful thing about not having it is what you guys chose to do, which is making your own, moving
Right.
forward on this like individual, unique experience.
Right. And honestly, that kind of leads to having like, okay, so me and Sashel's, the way we learned about Black culture, I think is unique. I think it's unique to people in our situation, right? But I think it kind of stems from this thing where we didn't have Black role models, like real Black role models like in our lives. We just like didn't have the actual Black culture that exists. It wasn't given to us in that way. We would see glimpses of it. Sometimes we would be a part of it if we're like my dad took me to a cookout or something, or was watching me or something, and I was at my nana's house. Like then I was in Black culture. But again, too young to even know that it was a different culture. And then when the Black family kind of faded out of my life, I nobody, like the only Black role models I had were either on TV or they were whooping my ass at school.
That's a totally different experience than having that person live in your house every single day and you look up to them and say, this is how I'm supposed to be. This is
Right.
how I live my life. You didn't have that.
Right. And I think that led itself to how I became. It led myself to like not only considering myself Black in a way that's personal. It's not, I don't tell people I'm Black. It's not like I would be like, oh, like, I mean, this is a bad example because I'm on a podcast called Mixed Edition. But I'm just saying, like, I don't walk around and claim being Black, but at the same time, it's kind of universally understood that I am. And that, you know, how I portray myself as a Black person has been cultivated by me from people that I have chosen to be my Black role models, whether they be fictional people like Will Smith. I know people out there can relate to that. If you had a Black daddy that wasn't around, like watching Uncle Phil and Will Smith and all them, like that's what you had kind of posturing it up. But also in my life, meeting Black role models and meeting people who inspired me to want to be Black, to love the culture and to love that part of myself in a way that my parents, God bless them, just couldn't give me. They couldn't understand how to like give it to me. I only had from the outside view.
On that point, I will say, my acceptance of my Blackness happened very late in my life, comparedly. Like, I mean,
Did it happen
relatively
after
late.
I knew you? Like when I met you, you weren't, and then like from then,
Yeah.
So within the
Yeah.
last like 13 years, right?
Relatively late in life. Like it wasn't that I thought I was white. It was I had acknowledged that I have
Right.
Black genes.
Right.
But as far as culture goes, I was like, that has nothing to do with me because I didn't grow up in that culture. Therefore, I'm, I
Right.
don't belong there. None of that belongs to me. I don't emulate any of it,
You don't claim it.
and I didn't claim it.
Right.
Right. And now that I've gotten into it, like now I'm on my cultural journey, immersing myself in all kinds of cultures, including the ones that I naturally belong to.
Right.
It's nice to get a kind of sense of belonging
Yes.
and that sense of like connection,
Yes.
which I can get in multiple other cultures that I don't belong to as well.
Right.
I do want to clarify
Right. You can get
that
it anywhere.
I get similar feelings elsewhere, but it's nice to know because growing up, really my Black role models were non-existent or fairly poor.
Right.
Like my dad, he is on and off in my life generally,
Right.
but he's more like a cool uncle.
Right.
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 Like I hang out, we party,
Right.
that kind of relationship. It wasn't really a, hey, this is how you're supposed to be a person. Let me teach you,
Right.
things like that. It was never that kind of relationship. And so I think that I got a really kind of immature version of Black culture
Right.
and a really like a basic level kind of what you would see on the media,
Right.
like rap culture.
Right.
Hip hop
Yes.
culture is what I was
Yes,
really exposed
bro.
to growing up, and I didn't want anything to do with that.
Right.
Like
Like you
and
get
that
that
was the
sense.
only yeah, that was the only sense I had of what black people are.
I feel you so hard because like I didn't like rap growing up. It just wasn't like it was something I kind of grew into and I appreciated more when I got older. Mostly because my parents didn't like rap though. I will say that. But I didn't really like rap
Same.
mostly because I was a good kid. Like I thought drugs were the worst thing in the world. I thought that if you sell drugs, you're the worst person in the world. Like I was just like that kid that was just like overzealously trying to be a good guy. You know what
You
I
were a
mean?
snob.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't necessarily snobby because I was a kid, so I didn't
No,
have
I'm
the
just thinking
same.
you're a food snob, you're a music snob, you're
Okay, yeah,
you're
all right. I might agree with you there. But the thing is, like, when you're a kid, I just didn't respect it. I didn't respect like the hustle. I didn't respect the pain and the actual like history that was coming through the rap music at the time because it was all about shaking your ass in the club at that time. When I was that age, the role models I had to look up to in my black Rolodex of artists were 50 Cent and, like Plies and, just people who I was like, bro, I don't relate to this. I don't relate to this at all.
Yeah, I think that's a very normal experience for the majority of people to look at that whole fake world that's been created for our entertainment that is a fantasy and to say that ain't me though. Like I'm not out
What?
there doing that.
I don't think it's I think it's very real for the people who live in it. I do think that it is over marketed. I think that's what Danny meant was that there are people out there faking it because the genuine thing is the thing that sells the records. But I think that when I was growing up, when you hear about the hood and the ghetto, like we can't forget like I've seen that. Sashel has seen that. It's not like we're ignorant.
Oh, I apologize. Because what I was talking about was like popping bottles and like having money to throw. I don't know. Like
No.
that ain't
No,
me.
I'm talking about like, cause remember we're '90s babies, so we were growing up the Biggie, Tupac, and stuff like that, and where rap was like, hustle rap was more of a thing. Street rap was
Wow.
way more of a
Okay.
thing.
That wasn't even a thing I knew about at the time.
Right, like that's what I mean.
I
Like,
was still watching
yeah,
Disney.
and to look at those people as black role models, right, was just not.
Still trying to be a Disney princess.
It was
at that
not.
point.
It was not. What I wanted to be. I didn't live that life. I was blessed enough to not have to resort to that to live my life. So what ended up happening was I started being like, no, I don't fuck with that. Like
Mm.
I'm not that. Like whatever
yeah,
that if you're gonna call that black, and for a lot of my life, that's the only thing I had to point to and be like, that's black, was what people were telling me and was hip hop music. I was like, okay, if that's black, then I'm not black. And then it took
yeah,
years of education to be like, oh, that is an overgeneralization, way too hard. I was very
Yeah.
ignorant.
Then you realize the bravery alone in just making music like that and saying who you are.
yeah. What I want to say
Side note.
is, um, well, while I agree that the hip hop culture was just not for me, it's for totally different reasons. So, what I was exposed to in black culture within my immediate group of people was kind of that gangbanger lifestyle.
Yeah,
And I saw firsthand the struggle and the pain and like the desperation of that, and I wanted no part of it, and I felt no part of it. Like
right,
I because I was so sheltered by my mother, even though this is happening to people that I know immediately, I couldn't uh empathize
right,
Mm.
with them because I didn't understand, you know, the need to go out
right.
and sell drugs. Like I was like, why don't you just get a job? Which I think is what a lot of um people in society now even think.
Yep,
And I
yep,
I very much had what I consider right now the white perspective as a child. I was like, "Oh, just get a job like a normal person
Right.
because I was ignorant of it. And
Yeah.
I don't
Same.
I don't blame anyone for this.
Right.
Like I did that. I had those thoughts and I didn't realize that it really was out of necessity.
Mm-hmm.
And as I learned more about people and life struggles and went through my own struggles, even though no, I didn't sell drugs and I also, that's
Right.
just not my lifestyle.
Right.
Um there was a lot that I could relate to living in poverty as an adult
Yep.
and kind of understanding that struggle where now I had a new kind of appreciation
Right.
Yes.
Right.
for that
Uh,
life. Like Dani, what do you think? Did you even appreciate the struggle prior to knowing Sebastian?
No. And now I appreciate the struggle like with my whole being. No, I didn't understand it because like when you don't understand or you don't like have information, all you have is face value. And dude, there is so much going on deep in Black culture that isn't represented by what you see.
Yep. Yep.
So much. So much
Yep.
struggle, so much pain, and then so much strength as a result. Oh,
I think Sashel froze in a really, really cute pose.
she really did.
Jeez. Why? Why
I don't
is it
know, but
always
it's
like
cute.
this?
I just wanted to add to what Dani was saying because as the struggle teacher that
You are my Black role model.
right. I'm a terrible Black role model, but yeah. No, I'm just saying like she has seen me now. We've been together for almost 7 years in April. Yeah. But we've been together for almost 7 years and she's seen me try and get a job. She's seen me try
I've gone to Anderson's with you.
Right. She's seen me try
We've
and
got dirty looks.
Right. She's just seen the parts of it that wouldn't be apparent to her if she hadn't been in a relationship with me.
Yep.
And when she asked me, like, bro, like, why do you, like, what do you do to deal with it? I think my answer is why I say I'm a bad Black role model. I say I ignore it. It doesn't exist to me. Like, it's like, yeah, they're staring at me. Okay, what? I'm a big dude. Maybe they're staring at me because I'm big. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're not racist, right? Like, I'm on that positive shit. Like, I'm always like, bro, you know what? Even if they are racist, like, if they got to know me, they'd probably love me. I always take racism as a challenge. Like, that's just that's how I've always been. Right. Once I realized it was a thing, of course, which we talked about in the beginning of this podcast. Like, once I realized it was a thing, I was like, oh, hell no. Like, I'm like, wait a second, you're going to make it hard? And that's when I started checking Caucasian on all the government forms. Because, I mean, am I lying, though? They tell you to pick one. Am I lying, though?
No,
am I
you
lying?
tell you to pick one, and I pick the most opportune one.
Right.
I will say that. Yeah.
That's why I'm a bad Black role model.
I will say that.
Because, like, all my life, I think I've been running from it just because it's terrifying. Like, it's terrifying to live in a country that hates you.
Yes.
And you're just like, bro, like, what? Wait a second. Like, I know all these people who are different colors of all the rainbow, and all I got for them is love, and all they got from me is love. What do you mean this country hates me? Like for me to learn, like, oh, you don't know? Okay, you're about to find out. Because, like, you're going to grow up, and you're going to have to live your life as a Black man. And, like, you don't get to choose that. And I'm like, why? Why don't I get a choice? Like, it's my life. And they were just like, that's just how it be.
And I would
when the bubble bursts. When the bubble bursts.
So,
Pop's
Lord
great.
knows Sebastian's not about to let me be out here in a bubble. If he's out here with a popped one, he's like, ma'am, no, you're not a Disney princess. Also, I'm not a Disney princess. Also, not a thing.
It doesn't exist in real life.
Not a thing. I'm out here taking out the
Unless you're
garbage
born with
can,
money.
like, I'm out here taking out the trash like this, like it's a Gucci bag. So confused. No, literally, Sebastian taught me how to cook. Sebastian taught me how to, like, speak to my landlord.
Because, like,
how to be an adult.
Right, like, yeah.
I literally thought that, like, you just look cute and then the guy does it all. And Sebastian is like, bro, okay, like, what?
Hell no.
What
Yo, I'm just saying though. I'm just saying.
I worked too
like,
damn hard.
y'all, people out there understand. They feel me. I know they feel me because you can't just let everyone believe the fairy tale.
As an inner fairy tale member, I genuinely think we need to pop them bubbles.
Pop them.
It's not good for you. It's not healthy.
Is that the motto of this episode?
Pop
Pop
'em.
them bubbles?
Pop them bubbles.
That's a lot of sodium,
That's
children.
a lot of soda. That's a lot of salt. Oh my god, dude. But like honestly, Sashel's
I'm so gotta hold
Dude,
myself
you
up.
need to learn more. That's
Yeah.
the end thing. Like, you can't just stay in one
That's
pocket.
and that's what
Don't
mixed
stay
edition
ignorant.
is all about. We talk a lot about the cultures we belong to. We talk a lot about the
Yes.
cultures that we are excluded from on this channel
Yes.
because that is the society we live in. Those are the rules we play. But the ultimate goal of mixed edition is to change those rules, to make it so
Yeah.
like when we were kids and it didn't matter. It literally didn't exist until somebody made it exist. And so I am calling forward are calling forward this idea, individual culture. Keep your history.
Hashtag mixed race day.
Individual culture. Keep the cultures you claim. Learn from them. But then also open it up. Let other cultures in. Learn from them because the only way we are going to be the best humanity can be is if we take all the best parts from each of us. That's it. That's all we
Oh.
got. That's all we
Yes.
got.
Other people are out there thriving in ways you never knew and struggling in ways you've never even heard of. So get to it and learn a little bit more so that you can make your lives better and maybe theirs a little bit better too.
So I am gonna say, at the end, we're coming to the end of the episode now. I'm
We
going to
are.
say that I am
Sad.
definitely pledging myself to learning more about my Black culture and learning more about what it means to be Black in America than just my own experiences. But also, at the same time, I'm going to learn about cultures that I don't belong to because it helps me communicate with my fellow man. It helps me communicate with people from all over the world in a way that is just human.
Yeah.
That's what we is. That's where we at.
Let's be humans.
Let's be hummins together, people.
Let's be humans.
We'll be hummins. And with that, we would like to say, stay cultured. We love you.
Stay cultured. Are we allowed to sing that?
Oh, fuck.